Accessing library computer data.
Out there are no saints, just people.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. Welcome back to our coverage of DS9. It's been a while. We had Melora in the meantime, but it's been a couple weeks since we had a DS9 outside of that. Discovery wrapped up, and now we're moving on to the middle parts of Season 2 of DS9. It's called Necessary Evil. The 8th episode of the second season. It aired back on the 14th of November 1993, written by Peter Allen Fields, directed by James L. Conway. In this episode, an attempt on Quark's life reopens a 5-year-old murder investigation. Clay, welcome back to Deep Space Nine, the station you'll never forget. You can try to leave, but you can't leave forever, or whatever that saying is. How are you?
I'm good. Yeah, I was really, I was expecting some sort of, judging by the stuff we've been watching lately, I was expecting like Mirror Universe Odo to show up, but then to just disappear very quickly, never be brought up again. But they actually had some like coherent story in this episode of Star Trek, so it's very nice to see that after the last 15 weeks or so. But it was good. They do go to the Mirror Universe in the later. The second season, one of the later episodes of this show. Just so you know, they are going to. I know, I'm aware, and I'm looking forward to that because I feel like that's going to actually feel like the Mirror Universe instead of like a writer's room collectively shrugging.
You guys can tune in soon. Me and Clay will be talking with Trexpertise about debating Discovery. So we'll get off that horse for now, but we are going to take a break. I'm going to play a clip, and me and Clay are going to come back and break down Necessary Evil.
Commence station security log. Stardate 47282.5. At the request of Commander Sisko, I will hereafter be recording a daily log of law enforcement affairs. The reason for this exercise is beyond my comprehension, except perhaps that humans have a compulsion to keep records and lists and files. So many, in fact, that they have to invent new ways to store them microscopically. Otherwise, their records would overrun all known civilization. My own very adequate memory not being good enough for Starfleet, I am pleased to put my voice to this official record of this day. Everything's under control. End log.
All right, Clay. So, we're back with DS9 and everything like that. I think that this episode has firmly entrenched one thing in my mind. It's that Peter Allen Fields might be my favorite Star Trek writer. Of all time.
What else has he run? What else has he written?
He did The Inner Light. He did Duet, which we just watched. He did Half a Life for TNG. He's got a couple more of DS9 episodes, but those are the big ones that we would know. Duet being the most recent one that we did. Peter Allen Fields is, if we want to just compare one last thing for Discovery and how Discovery doesn't sort of match up to older Trek, sort of even saying that unemotionally, like if we're not going to explore what that means or whether we think it's good or bad. Peter Allen Fields understands that when writing for Star Trek, knowing the characters is very important. So, like
a lesson not exclusive to just writing Star Trek. One might say it's an applicable lesson to writing any fiction.
Any fiction, yes. I think unless you're. Yes, except for maybe there's a couple exceptions where that's not very important. But in the most part, 99% of the time, knowing the characters is very, very important. This episode is all about knowing the characters and getting to know the characters on a level that feels very much of the era of Trek that's going on. But just to get out of the way, I love this episode. I think it's a very, very strong episode of Star Trek and an episode of DS9. It's the show really sort of getting into the groove of what this show does well that TNG would never particularly try to do, or it never did particularly well. It does the thing where it's got the genre bending that we like in Star Trek, where this one is a film noir takeoff, basically. It's good character.
At first, I thought it was going to be Quark noir, but then it was ended up being Odo noir, which is my favorite kind of perfume scent.
And I think that it's an episode that's really well written. Peter Allen Fields does a great job. It feels grounded in the characters. Everything here makes sense and all that stuff. But I don't know. What did you think of Necessary Evil?
I thought it was good. Yeah. I was surprised at how into the backstory stuff I was. And I think a lot of that comes from the fact that, I think it comes from an understanding of the characters, because when they start going to flashback, the minute Odo steps on screen, I was in. Because the way that they play him, the way that he's written, is a way that he's never appeared before. He's much more like a subjugated sort of person.
He's very hesitant in a way that future Odo is not. Yeah.
Yeah, he's generally very assertive and headstrong, and to see him not that way just kind of caught me off guard. Because usually when they do this kind of stuff, the hackier way to do it is it's just the same character. It was just like it's a filter over
he's got a different hairstyle or something. Yeah.
But, they went out of their way to actually think about where he came from and think about the situation and play into and actually exploit the fact that the Cardassians running the station is a very different atmosphere than the Federation, which I appreciated, because I don't know if they've flashbacked or done anything like that since then, but this is the first time I've seen what the station was like under Cardassian rule.
This is the very first episode that does that. You haven't missed it.
Oh, it is. Okay. Yeah. And even though they only give you a little bit, I thought it went a long way.
Yep. I think that and just the writing is a lot of this episode. I think the performances are pretty good too, but I wanted to talk about, we've been talking on Discovery how much we missed the logs that go on.
Yeah.
This might have my very most favorite captain's or log sort of thing. I'll just read it really quickly. Command Station Security Log Stardate 47282.5. At the request of Commander Sisko, I will hereafter be recording a daily log of law enforcement affairs. The reason for this exercise is beyond my comprehension, except perhaps that humans have a compulsion to keep records and lists and files. So many, in fact, that they have to invent new ways to store them microscopically. Otherwise, their records would overrun all known civilization. My own very adequate memory not being good enough for Starfleet, I am pleased to put my voice to this official record of the day. Everything's under control, end log, that is a very Odo log. We miss the logs because it's a chance to explain not only the setup for the episode, but you get a chance to look at the character about it. Like, Odo's log is everything's fine. That's all I need to say about this and go on about my day. It's something that I think I really miss, and I think that this episode does a good job of using the log in an effective way to sort of give you a understanding of where you are and to give you a little bit of insight into what Odo's up to at this point.
Yeah, and it's a use of the log that I don't really think is common, because generally the log isn't an avenue, at least from what I've seen anyway. It doesn't feel like much of an avenue into the mind of the character who's saying it, because generally it's usually the captain, and there's not a lot of subjectivity in there. Sometimes there is, but generally not. And anytime that they switch characters, like if it was Riker doing it or something, it's still not a ton of subjectivity. So to actually see it used as or written specifically for the character and almost more of an inner monologue, I thought was great, and actually works really well given the genre that they're playing with, because the voiceover is a tradition, a long-standing tradition of like the detective story film noir thing.
Yeah. So
to replace the voiceover narration with the captain's log or just the log entry, I thought was a great way to blend those two things together.
What'd you think of how they blended noir into this Star Trek story?
I thought it was good, but I thought it was a little bit undercooked. I found I really liked the way that the mystery in the present was serving the backstory. And so the backstory was actually the thing that was the focus of the episode and the important part of the episode, not the whodunit. But at the same time, the way they wrap it up at the end is pretty weak, I think. Just having Odo happen to come in on the guy while he's trying to choke out Quark.
Right.
I don't know, that stuff seemed like it wrapped up way too quickly, and like I'm not even still sure why I should have cared about it, other than the fact that Quark had been shot.
Yep.
But ultimately, I don't know if it really matters, because the rest of it was really interesting, and it was the scene at the end with Kira and Odo, I think, kind of dismiss any thing that I didn't like about the mystery because it's all serving that last scene basically.
Yeah. I want to talk about the end scene, but not immediately, because I have problems with the end scene. But I think that it's done well as a noir, except for the fact that the mystery itself is not very complicated, which I think is the right choice for this episode, because you don't want to get too distracted by things that are going on. In terms of, you want it to be more of a character study about these guys than you want it to be about the whodunit aspect of it. But
it's ultimately it's not that complicated, but also Odo's investigation methods are questionable.
Sure.
And like, I feel like it should be, if it's going to be simple, I feel like what he's doing should be a little bit more interesting.
Yeah.
As far as how he connects the dots, but like having what's his name? Rom?
Quark's brother is Rom.
Yeah, close his eyes and see if he can remember the letters of the, like, that was like, that's the only thing that you're going on in this situation, is maybe he saw the letters in the name, and maybe he's I don't know, that stuff was a little bit, as for someone for a character who's very much like a fact-based
rational, I guess.
Rational character. That was a very tattered thread he was trying to follow there.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I found this interesting, is that Michael Piller commented after it, "The greatest regret I have about the show is that I allowed Rick Berman to take out one scene that I thought really would have made it better. There was a scene where Odo, having just talked to Kira, was going to see Palra, and he sees Gul Dukat coming out of her room, and he kisses her goodbye, indicating that they just had a relationship. When Dukat walks away, we go around the corner. Odo was his picture. Dukat straightens it out. Odo goes to see Palra. If we had left that in, that would have suggested that Gul Dukat, a red herring, might have been involved in the murder or was involved in covering it up somehow. It would have been an interesting additional element for people to be wondering about during the course of the show. I don't know if that would have added a lot, but it certainly would have made the mystery more complicated than they've had, or you'd have thought that Dukat... I had a lot of... My issue with Dukat in this episode is that he kind of just always shows up at the end of scenes going, is this the resolution we're looking for? So I think adding him in a more natural way would have been a good addition to that, and it would have left you wondering why Dukat is involved in this at all. Where my understanding of Dukat being involved is really more straight ahead than anything. He wants Odo to be in there because he wants Odo's sort of impartiality to uncover this Bajoran the underground operations there, and he thinks that Odo would be the best way to do that. Sorry, go ahead. Did you have something?
I was just going to say, I like that stuff. I think the problem with the mystery is that it's at least the flashback stuff works because it's involving characters we know. It's mainly Odo and Kira and them getting to know each other, and then we know what those characters are about, even if they don't at the time know what each other is about. The modern time, the present mystery, I don't think really works because everything involved with that is stuff that we don't actually see. Yeah. And have no relationship to.
Right.
So
we just met this woman and you had stuff like that.
Yeah, we just met the woman, the killer. I mean, the person who gets killed in the past, that happens off screen, so we don't even know what his deal is until the end of the story. Yep. I thought for a second, that the guy who shoots Quark was supposed to be her husband, who was supposed to be dead or something, but that was obviously wasn't the case. And like the guy Chizzo or whatever his name is. Yep. That guy who's like the key in moving the case forward. You don't even see him. Like he gets introduced and then killed both off screen. Right. So it's a little bit, and I mean, obviously the focus is on Odo and not the mystery itself, but it's difficult to get invested in something that you're not even, A, they're barely even talking about, but B, you're not even seeing. So
yeah. I thought that we'd it's an Odo episode. I thought it's a good place to talk about Odo here. I think this is a really great Odo episode. It's a really great character episode for Odo. And just to start it off before I fire it over to you about what you thought in specifics about Odo, I love the way that they justify Odo being an investigator, which is that as a shapeshifter, his whole thing is observation of others and copying them. And that is basically the reason that he says that he is able to be a good detective because he pays attention to the details of everything, which is fascinating. I didn't need them to do this. I would have just accepted Odo as being an investigator, but the fact that they did it so naturally is wonderful, in my opinion. And Odo, René Auberjonois does a fantastic job playing past and present Odo in this episode. Like, you see a lot of growth between those two stages, where the first time Odo walks into Ducat's office, he's almost basically a little better than a prisoner in a lot of senses. He has his head hung low. He doesn't look Ducat in the eyes a lot. And he sort of grows over the course of that to not become a different person, but just become a sort of different version of the same Odo that we know. And I don't know, what did you think about Odo in this one?
I thought he was great. I thought all that stuff you were talking about was great. The way he played past and present Odo was great. The thing I really liked, actually, was his he did a lot of nonverbal acting, getting across that he actually kind of likes Quark.
Yeah.
You know, they they put them together so often on the show, then they're always generally the highlight of the show. And to see Quark injured in that way, he really plays it as though, you know, he on some level, he if he doesn't love him, he kind of like enjoys the spar, and he's their friends. I mean, Odo doesn't have any friends.
Yep.
Odo doesn't really have any friends, and so Quark is probably the closest thing he has to a friend, and that kind of sucks, but you know, a friend is a friend.
Yep. Yeah.
And he plays it that way, where you can tell that he actually cares that Quark is, you know, dead or dying.
Yep.
And they don't really bring much attention to it. I think maybe Sisko has a line about it where they kind of glance at it a little bit, but generally they don't really bring attention to it. But I think he played it really well. I think he's a great actor.
Yeah. He's definitely one of the stronger ones. I think he's written very differently from the other security chiefs that we've seen to this point. He is he's the strongest one out of all. Like, there's really only Worf and Yar and things like that, whoever you'd consider to be security on TOS and everything. But he is very strong in and of himself. His ethos is unique in that he's really very only bound to justice, and he never compromises himself this entire episode. Even though the sort of reveal hinges on the fact, like, he never lies. He doesn't lie about whether or not Kira was involved in that thing. Right. So he gets out of it without having to break his own mandate about what he considers to be important. But he's a very, like, what do you think about this character? He's basically been someone who's had to play both sides of the field for his entire life. You know, he started having to play between the Cardassians and the Bajorans, and now he's moved to the Federation and the Bajorans, and he never really wants to declare a side in things, even though I guess we could argue that he does declare a side at the end of this episode. He is uniquely in the middle, I guess, for in terms of Star Trek characters.
Yeah, I think it's a welcome change because he is just sort of doing his job and surviving. And you can kind of get I've always gotten the impression from him that while he is not a bad guy, obviously, he's not explicitly a good guy, in that, like, he is explicitly a good guy, but what I mean is, like, his demeanor is generally like, I'm going to choose the side that I agree with, but that doesn't mean that I like you that much.
Yeah. Yep.
And I like that he rides the line in the middle of that, because it is you can use that to really kind of bring stuff back down to earth a little bit. If from a Starfleet side, he can be the voice of reason for either side, basically.
Yes. Yeah.
And you know, that's always a great character to have, and he is fairly unique among Star Trek characters in that way, because usually those characters only stick around for an episode.
Yes. Right. Yeah. And his placement in the Cardassian order has given him sort of a unique perspective on everything. The way that he meets Kira is interesting in this. It's sort of a definitely a different dynamic when they knew each other back then, and it takes us into you said that you liked the ending. I love the ending. 95% of the ending. Mm-hmm. I think it's a little bit of and it feels like very much of an executive note. I'm a little bit let down that Kira did not actually was not sent there to assassinate the chemist guy who dies. She
But she was, though, wasn't she?
She says that she went in.
Oh, she was there to get the list.
The
right?
list, and he walked in on her while she was in the office and attacked her, and she killed him in self-defense. I find that's a little bit of a letdown. Do you think I'm making too much of a big deal out of that? Because otherwise, I love the last scene. I love the final shot with Odo with his head hung low. The final line, "Will you ever trust me again?" is fantastic. Do you think I'm making too big of a deal out of it?
I can see why you would say that, because you think sending her there to kill him is more of like a cold-blooded thing that he has to deal with having her done or something like that?
And because I think it weakens her deception of Odo on some level. Like if she was outright lying about the fact that she had killed him, it makes the betrayal, her last line of will you ever trust me again, makes more sense than, yeah, I kind of lied about this, but it wasn't really that bad. It was still not really my fault that this happened.
Yeah, I don't know. I think ultimately you might be splitting hairs a little bit. I think it still works. I mean, arguably her killing the guy when she wasn't sent there to do it is even worse if you think about it. Because, she just killed. I mean, I guess he was on the list, I guess, anyway.
He's a Cardassian collaborator, so he's not a good guy. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I think it works either way. I think maybe having her go there specifically for the list makes the list less of a device. Because otherwise it's like, what the hell? Why is the list there? Who knows about the list? It makes it a larger object in the story, I think, than just having. Is it a little convenient? Probably, yeah. And using the list to kill the other collaborator. No, yeah, I don't know. I don't think I have a problem with it, actually. I think it's okay because the killing of the other collaborators on the list is something that plays into it, into the rest of the story anyway. So.
Yeah. So why did you love the final scene between them? Just because it was a good culmination of the episode, or did you think there was something else going on?
No, I thought it was. I wasn't really honestly expecting it. I was at the end after they solved the mystery. I kind of had my my bad Star Trek ending blinders went on, so I wasn't expecting them to actually do something really satisfying at the end. But
right, yeah.
I mean, they pay off. It's sort of it. As I was saying, the present mystery is only there in service of the backstory stuff, and up to that point, the backstory stuff hadn't really had an ending to it. And that final scene allows them to really tie up that thread, but also, move the characters forward in a show which is more or less episodic and doesn't really do it that often. I mean, I guess it does eventually, but
yeah,
it is a character changing moment for two characters that in most other shows at this time wouldn't get that moment. And and it's really kind of heartbreaking too, because he put his trust in her and she was lying to him all this time. So I thought it was just a great way to wrap it all up.
Yeah, it's
very satisfying.
Yeah, I think that your last point is really the big thing to me. It's that this is we'll probably move away from doing this at some point, but we're still fresh enough in DS9 where comparing it to TNG makes sense on a lot of levels. Mm. It's not an ending that TNG could have ever done on some level, because everything resets in TNG. Yeah. And like this is more of a character building relationship stuff between these two, who it is a big betrayal. It's shown that their entire relationship, because we see the beginning right until the present moment about those two, has been built on basically a weak foundation on some level. Yeah. It's not a relationship crippling thing, but it's I can't believe that that's what we've actually been basing our relationship on up until this point. It's a big change and Odo is disappointed that it slipped past his notice for so long. He says that she's a better liar than he had thought, and he's upset with himself and everything about that.
Right. And also, comparing it to TNG, every character on TNG has chain of command built into it. So, if you had an episode like this where at the end of the episode, Riker tells Picard that he actually lied to him and did X, Y, and Z, or really anybody tells anybody, there's a chain of command element to it where you're going to be thinking like, well, then why does he trust him to do fucking anything?
Right.
You know, like that. And if it never comes up again, then what's the point?
And he has to punish them on some level.
Yeah.
You need to reprimand them. Yeah.
Yeah, but Odo and Kira are not really. There's no command relationship between them, right?
Not real. Maybe on the Bajoran side, but it's certainly not one that's Starfleet level. You know, they don't have the relationship that the Starfleet officers have because neither of them are Starfleet.
Yeah, it seemed. I assumed it was more of a kind of just a coworker kind of relationship than a chain of command kind of relationship.
Yeah, that's possibly true too.
And that, I think that allows you to do this stuff a little bit easier because their interactions are not going to be based on orders and trusting people to follow them and respecting authority and all that kind of stuff as much as some of the other characters might be.
Yeah. Let's see here. I wanted to talk a little bit about the directorial style of this one. I think we have a comment coming up later on that kind of touches on this, but I think it's a well-directed episode. And I don't know if this is a Patreon comment, but I'll say it now and then we can reference it later. Someone, I think listener Kyle had said that this episode reminds him of yesterday's Enterprise in that it feels like an episode where everyone was kind of like, this is good. We should try very hard on this one. So, like there's a little things that you hardly ever see in Star Trek episodes when they cut between the past and the present, right? Mm-hmm. They play off similar images, but they're totally in different contexts when they cut between them. So in one, you never get useless shots like this because they always are running for time and they snip off these little dramatic flourishes. We get a shot of present day. Little kids are running around the promenade and they sort of run around an alien and they're chasing and playing with each other. Mm-hmm. And you cut back later, two kids who are identical to them are waiting for their father to come out of the Cardassian mining program. And they're like waiting behind the fence. There's another one where Quark and Dukat and Odo are laughing sinisterly because they've plotted things to this point in Quark's bar. They're laughing very like evilly, and Odo isn't joining in on it. And it cuts to people actually enjoying themselves at Quark's bar in the present, like they're having a good time. Mm-hmm. And so it's laughter in different circumstances, and it's really nice directing and editing to cut between those things as a bridge. You know, it's not super advanced stuff, but it's like it's an artistic level that you never really see in Star Trek episodes. So I appreciated it. Yeah,
no, I thought it was great. It looked really good. I thought the visual style between the two time periods was fairly subtle. I mean, it was noticeable, but it wasn't like they slapped a really heavy filter on it. They just kind of like dulled it down a bit.
I like Odo's civilian clothing too, which is basically a trench coat. Like he's not wearing the Picard and the Captain's Holiday like open flowery shirt or whatever. He's wearing something appropriate.
I'll tell you though, I'm going to say this right now. How many seasons does this show go for?
7.
If I do 7 seasons worth of DS9 and I never get to see the Cardassian neck trick, I'm going to be very upset.
It knocks their socks off. They love it. What's your... Did you have I noticed some people seem to have a sort of question about what Odo's role is when he starts off this episode. Did you have any concerns about like what Odo's status would be on the station or anything like that? In the past, I'm talking about.
Not really. It was a little bit unclear, I thought, but I felt like they covered it up, or at least kind of gave you enough to kind of maybe piece it together yourself. That they didn't really need to go into it, because they talk about him like he was some sort of a sideshow attraction, basically.
Yes.
Who then escaped and ended up, I don't know how he ended up on the station, but
I get the impression that he was being studied by Bajoran scientists who were eager to please the Cardassians, so they had him do parlor tricks. Yeah. My understanding is that Odo was released by the Bajoran doctor, and this is like he wanted to learn to go out into the real world, basically.
Okay. I wasn't sure if he was released or if he had escaped, because the way I was reading that scene with him and Dukat was kind of like the I just watched The Proposition, so it's fresh in my mind, but it's like the thing where you catch the outlaw and then you say, well, you know, I could send you to jail, but if you go kill your brother, then I won't send you to jail. So like that kind of thing, like, you know, they pull him aside and they're like, I know what you are. we could very easily send you back to the lab, but if you know, so it would behoove you to work with us, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and it gives Odo a reason beyond his own sort of ethics to continue on with the investigation.
That wasn't like a driving force of the story, so I thought it was fine because you know that stuff. If you put too much weight in that stuff, if it's not the center of your story, then it makes everything kind of muddy. But
I think it would distort Odo's drive maybe a little bit too much if you hammer it too much here, because it's more about his internal understanding of what the right thing to do is than an external force acting on him. Yeah, and I think that I think it's a really, really strong episode. But we'll take a break. We'll play an audio clip. I'm going to read the patron thoughts, and then me and Clay will give our final thoughts on Necessary Evil.
A colleague of mine was given the job of sabotaging the ore processor. Vatrick was my responsibility.
You were here to execute him.
No. I was here to find the list. The names of the Bajorans who were selling us out. We'd been informed that Vatrick was our direct link to Ducat.
That must have been why Ducat chose me to investigate. He had to stay as far away from this incident as he could so as not to endanger his network of Bajoran sympathizers.
Obviously, I never found the list. But that's what I was looking for in his shop when Vatrick walked in on me. I didn't have a choice.
I misjudged you, Major. You were a better liar than I gave you credit for.
You were working for the Cardassians.
I haven't been for more than a year. You've had all that time to tell me the truth.
I tried to tell you the truth 100 times. What you think of me matters a lot. I was afraid
that it might affect our friendship. Maybe it doesn't have to.
Will you ever be able to trust me in the same way again?
All right, everybody. So, time for final thoughts and patron thoughts about Necessary Evil. We'll start with Patreon. If you guys support the show on patreon.com/the Pensky File, you can leave thoughts about upcoming episodes, and we read them on the podcast and react to them. So, talking about Necessary Evil, Holly McLaughlin writes, Odo starring in a sort of murder mystery / film noir style detective story is always good value. No disagreements there. Let's see here. Sorry, I should have cut these out. Zam Nuclear Vessel says, Necessary Evil, my favorite episode of the entire series. The story is compelling, pulpy, powerful, and both testing and confirming Odo and Kira's friendship. But the visual style stands out too, going back and forth between Tarek Noor and DS9 in a much more assured and creative way than you usually find in other 90s Trek. A story you couldn't do any other Trek show, done really well. Like yesterday's Enterprise for TNG, it's a very untypical episode that shows how the series is going to improve from here. I agree with that. I think we sort of discussed all of that stuff too, but I think that it is a good indicator of the show sort of circling around on what it actually wants to do. Necessary Evil from Joint Mango. Better than Things Past. Well, we'll have to come back to that when we get to Things Past. And
that's an episode, not just a general comment on the series up to this point?
Or a statement of your personal life and things like that. No, that's an episode coming up, which is kind of a companion to this one. Let's see here. Necessary Evil, Stephen Cobb. This is it. This is the kind of thing that DS9 does so well. Morality is gray, deep history into the show, a reminder that there was a whole world on DS9 before the Federation came along. It gives such depth to the universe of the show. It gives context to the whole rest of the show and how the same people orbit around each other and the station. Right? This is the advantage of DS9 being in one place. Right. This kind of story doesn't work on TNG because going to this planet and having a flashback built around this planet would feel way too rushed, and they would have to explain far too much. And the advantage of staying in one place is that you can tell stories like this where you see the evolution of the characters. Let's see here. I should really have cut these out. I will cut these out in the future because this is just too much. Matthew Ross writes, Necessary Evil. I love the statement about the need for records. I am always amused about the paperless office and how electronic storage would be wonderful if it was a nice change showing the Cardassian way of doing things. A lack of color and set of dark grays and cool blues. One could say that the crowded, dirty nature is similar to LaGuardia. On the next murder, he shapeshifted, though. Still not clear as to why Odo was on the station in the first instance. If it was a scientific oddity, you would think he would be back on the planet Bajor to be studied. Yeah, I think that we got around that as well. Thank you, Matthew and Ross. And then Necessary Evil. Last comment. Kyle Barrett. An episode that's an O'Brien appearance away from perfection. Did you notice the lack of O'Brien, Clay?
It was so good that I didn't even notice he wasn't there. Was he not? Is he not there in like the background somewhere?
No, he's not in this one. Him and Sirach Lofton, who plays Jake, are not in this episode. But Kyle says, an episode that's an O'Brien appearance away from perfection. Well, maybe not perfection, but there are some issues. The shady guy returning to finish Quark off is a bit too convenient. There you go, Clay. There's your point. But still, it's an exceptional episode. Peter Allen Fields proves he's one of the best Star Trek writers of all time, and his work on Columbo helps him out here with a great detective story that not only gives us background on the station's past, but also heaps of character development. It feels like
also explains Odo's wonky eye. Yep,
there's actually a couple Columbo quotes in this. He says one more thing when he's walking out of the room,
nice,
which is a Columbo callback. It feels like yesterday's Enterprise from TNG, where you get the sense everyone involved, from the director to the set dressers, have put in extra effort to make the episode as good as it can possibly be. The only thing I'm not too keen on is the title. Considering the film noir influences, I'm surprised it wasn't called The Maltese Ferengi or The Sunset Promenade. I know that's tongue-in-cheek, but I like Necessary Evil. I think that's a good title. Yeah, that's it. Clay, what are you going to give for final thoughts? Do you have any wrap-up opinions about this?
No, I don't think so. I think this was really good. Yeah, I think this is a good step towards making DS9 its own thing, because it used, like we were saying about some of the other previous episodes where they're really starting to get it. They're using stuff that is uniquely DS9 to tell good stories instead of just sort of crutching on generic Star Trek tropes or stuff that would have been easily doable in TNG. And I also like that they do it. They don't have a guest star in it either. Like, no, it seems like really, all the big ones we've seen up to this point, or at least that I can remember, have like a prominent guest actor. Yep. And this one was all regulars. I mean, aside from Gul Dukat, but he's basically a regular at this point anyway. So
yeah, recurring guest star. What did you think of Dukat? Did you have any thoughts? We didn't talk about him at this point.
No, I like him. The more I see him, the more I like him. He's arguably a little bit arch, but I think he's arch in a useful way. Yeah, if that makes sense. Yeah, I like him. He continues to be a pleasant surprise anytime he shows up.
Yeah, it's a good performance. I think they do a good job of showing the kind of station that he was running. Obviously, it wasn't really even a station. It's just like a mining thing with the electric barbed wire fences and the way that he goes about his business and stuff like that. And he obviously will recur, but he's an important antagonist for the remainder of the series.
And I will say, I think this episode goes to show you how important it is, or how beneficial it is, to have these recurring characters that you can use across time periods, or in these situations, because traditionally you probably don't have him come back for this. Like, it would be very easy for that character to be any Cardassian, but having it be specifically Gul Dukat, it really makes the time period that much more real to the story that you've been told up to this point in the show. It puts a face on the Cardassian leadership of DS9, back when that was happening. So that stuff always helps when you can tie those things together and make it feel like it's a coherent story. It really amps up the how much the story. I'm losing my train of thought. You know what I mean?
Well, you also don't have to do any backstory explanation for him. You don't have to waste time being like, I am the commander of this station, and these are the things that I believe, and this is my general outlook on life. We know enough about the story that if you've been watching the show, you don't need to be filled in on what's going on. in any sense, and I think that works really well here. Yeah, I'm going to give this one a 5. I think it's a very, very strong episode of the show. It's not perfect. I would have fixed the ending scene a little bit, or I would have had Kira's admittance be a little bit more of a direct violation of Odo's trust in her. But outside of that, I think it's really strong. Rene Auberjonois is excellent. I love the Odo character. He's very interesting to me. I love how they flesh out his backstory, being the shapeshifter aspect of his life, and how that all piles into everything. I love the way it looks. I love the playing with the 5 years ago on DS9. This is what things were like when it was Tarek Noor. I think it just works really well. It's a very emotionally satisfying episode too on some level. It works well. Everything, you feel like you watched a complete story in that time, and as well as the fact that it's going to linger in the background and everything like that. So 5 out of 5 for me. I don't think you gave it a rating, Clay. Do you want to give it a number rating?
I'd give it a 4 out of 5, docking it a point for lack of Cardassian neck thing.
Yeah, the neck trick.
You know, the other thing about having Gul Dukat in there, which is nice, is the first scene with him and Odo. Odo does not look him in the eye.
Yep.
And that whole, like we were saying, that goes a long way to really establish what his character was. And then later on, he's staring him down hard.
Yep.
So it's just another nice piece of symmetry in the time, in the circumstance change and the time change, which is it's a really good episode.
Yeah, and you've mentioned before on duet episodes how you actually like because Odo and Dukat have had a few interactions to this point.
Yeah.
And they've always been, in the past references, they've always been on equal footing. Odo has no problem talking to Dukat in that kind of voice, and it just shows that development really nicely, I think.
Yeah.
I think that's it. So, guys, thank you very much. It's one of my favorite episodes of the second season. It's Necessary Evil. I know someone had tweeted at you, Clay, that I don't know if they thought you were hesitant on DS9, but they were just saying, wait till you get to Necessary Evil. It's the episode that flipped things for me. Mm-hmm. Would you understand that sentiment, or would you? Did you
Guys,
think?
I think this show fucking sucks, and I can't wait to not watch it anymore. I'm counting the days for 2019 when I can just like bathe in more Star Trek Discovery. No, I mean it's kind of a, if you listen to the show, if you've listened to the Discovery reviews, we've been shitting on that pretty good, and I hope I'm not surprised that this show is getting better. Because they're finding their footing, they're figuring it out, they're moving forward, which is great. I mean, it's what happens with every Star Trek show basically, except for the original. The original kind of was the same thing for 3 seasons.
I'd argue the original got worse. The original was the original was the only one that started gangbusters and got worse over the course of it.
That's why if you're recommending it to somebody else, you should say tell them the 3rd season is actually the 1st season.
Right. Yep.
But I feel like, so I'm not surprised that this is getting better. I'm enjoying it. Now that I'm actually watching it, I am finding it to be more than what I thought it was, which was just all of the diplomacy episodes of TNG, which I always hated. Yeah. Writ large. I'm finding, sorry, I'll let you, but I'm finding, even someone who's seen a lot of these episodes, I'm finding the further we get into it, it's a very different show from it's fundamentally a different thing, which makes it interesting to me. And I'll be honest with you, the last week or so, I had trouble sleeping, and usually Star Trek is my go-to to knock me out if I'm having trouble sleeping. The engine noise,
the white noise of the engine room, yeah.
Yeah, and also because so much of it is very tempered talking.
Yeah, diplomacy.
Yeah. And I just threw on a random episode of DS9, assuming I'm going to be out in 30 seconds with this. And I was watching it. I couldn't not. I think I'm at the point where I'm invested in the characters and I know them. So it was even if it wasn't the most engaging thing, which if I remember correctly, I don't think it was.
Sure.
I think it was the episode was I think it might have been Melora.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it wasn't great.
Yeah, Melora is a very, very bad. I'm sure people. I was waiting with bated breath for you to say Melora, because Melora is not a good episode. So that's interesting that you would say that. Yeah.
And I found myself thinking I'm aware that this is not a good episode, but like I know the characters at this point, so I'm like kind of interested in what's going on. And you know, to circle back to what I was saying about Discovery, I am looking forward to Discovery being another in a line of Star Trek shows where the first season kind of sucks.
Yep.
And so yeah, I'm not surprised this is getting better, and you know, I hold out hope for Discovery.
Yes, and we'll touch on that more with Kyle from Trek Species when he comes on.
To be fair, though, I don't know if I'm at the point yet with this where I would go out of my way to watch the ones I haven't seen yet.
Sure.
I might get there. Like, I feel like in TNG, I'm so familiar with the characters and so familiar with the world that I could throw any episode on and have it like hit that, you know, button for me.
Yeah.
This, I don't think I'm there yet. I'm still pleasantly surprised when it's good, and I'm pleasantly surprised that I am invested in most of the characters, Dax notwithstanding.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know if I'm there yet. I think I probably will be eventually, but
yes, DS9 follows standard suit. Season 3 is when the show becomes what the show is. So we have to get through. Season 2 so far is really a better version of season 1 in that it's realized what the stories it can tell well are, and the stories it doesn't tell well, it kind of avoids them on some level, but it feels very much like an evolution of season 1, but a very positive evolution of season 1, I guess would be the way to describe it. All right, guys, thank you very much. You can check out the social media links. They'll be in the video description of the podcast blurb. You can go to patreon.com/the Pensky File if you want to support the show there. You get extra stuff, extra podcasts. And then if you don't want to do that, if you don't want to give any money whatsoever, the thing that would be greatly appreciated, if you go to iTunes and give us a rating and a little sentence that talks about your feelings about the show. If you just leave a little sentence or a comment and then a star rating, that would be greatly appreciated. Outside of that, I think we're done. Clay, anything to talk about? What's our non sequitur ending here? Do you have one?
Yeah. So I've been on a bit of a Western kick lately. I've been watching more of the movies I own now that I have a DVD reading device next to my workspace, which I didn't have before. I used to really like the movie Young Guns, and I haven't watched it in a long time. So I wanted to put that on, and my computer/DVD player just spit it out at me.
Sure.
So I was wondering if maybe that was an indication of the quality of that movie, and it's been a while since I've seen it, and maybe it doesn't hold up.
For my non sequitur, I don't really have anything good. I've sort of been caught off guard here. We had a recent snowstorm, and I think a thing about getting older is like I looked at the snowstorm and it wasn't enough to snowblow, and we bought a snowblower this year, and I was upset that I didn't have enough snow to go out there and snowblow, and I just have to wait for it to melt, like some kind of some kind of Hawaiian islander or something, looking at it as snowfall, being unable to. I'm sure
that's like the surest sign that I'm getting older is the I'm like excited about appliances now.
Yep.
Like I got a toaster oven for Christmas, and it was the best day of my life.
you put
not as good as the year I got a vacuum cleaner for Christmas. That was like I got like a whole bunch of cool stuff and a vacuum cleaner, and I could not wait to put the vacuum cleaner together.
Every time we have a vacuum cleaner here at the house, and every time I use it, I'm just like, Amy, we bought the perfect sized vacuum cleaner. it's not too big, it's not too small, it gets the job done. I'm very enamored with it. But anyway, guys,
does it work well? Because there's nothing more frustrating than a vacuum cleaner that sucks.
It works okay. If it can't, like if it's a very heavy raisin, it can't pick it up. But other than that, I think it works pretty well. Guys,
I got ours around the time we got a dog, so it was just like I needed something that was industrial strength, or
to get the dog
house
hair.
Was just it was going to turn into a shithole.
Yeah. Guys, thank you very much for listening. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll be back.
We'll be back next week with our new show, Vacuum Cleaner Talk.
with that car
talk. Sponsored by Dyson.
That car talk NPR show, except based around vacuum cleaners. Thank you very much for listening, guys. We will see you next time.